Have you ever wondered why you destroy things just when they start to feel real? You get the job you dreamed of, then lose all motivation. You meet someone who sees you, then find reasons to disappear. You say, "This time will be different." Then do the same thing again. It's like something inside you won't let you have what you want. But what if that part of you isn't the enemy? What if it's the protector? Strange, right? The very thing that ruins your joy might be trying to keep you safe. And if you've ever felt that tension, the pull between who you are and who you pretend to be, between your dreams and your defenses, then maybe you're not broken. Maybe you're just divided. There's a part of you that's been waiting quietly to be seen. And once you do, everything begins to shift. Emma sat in the back of a yellow cab, her engagement ring still on her finger, her suitcase beside her. It was snowing in Chicago, the kind of quiet snow that softens the world but doesn't change what's underneath. Her fiancé, James, was still at the restaurant. She had walked out mid-toast. No explanation, just a soft "I'm sorry" and the sound of her heels against tile. And now here she was, 35 years old, a successful marketing executive, a woman with a view from the 21st floor and no one to share it with. The driver asked if she was okay. She said yes, but her voice cracked on the S. She wasn't okay, she was tired of running. But even more, she was terrified of staying, of what it meant to choose something, to keep it, to be seen and still stay. She had done this before. A job offer in New York she declined last minute. A friend who tried to get close, she stopped responding. Every time something good began, she ended it, with elegance, with logic, with just enough detachment to seem normal. But inside it was chaos, like standing at the edge of something sacred and hearing a voice say, "You don't deserve this. Turn back." It was that voice she had never been able to name until that night. After she returned home, sat on the edge of her bathtub fully clothed and let the water run, not to drown, not to cleanse, just to hear something louder than her own silence. Then came a knock at the door, not James, her best friend Ava, a therapist in training who always knew when to show up. Ava didn't ask questions. She just sat beside her, looked at her soaked sweater and whispered. Was it the voice again? Emma nodded. That was the first time. Someone else had seen it too. And that night became the beginning of a story Emma didn't know she was allowed to tell. A story not about fixing herself, but about finding the part that kept ruining everything and learning how to love it instead of running from it. Have you ever pulled away from something just when it started to feel safe, said you wanted love, then found yourself staring at the ceiling, rehearsing your exit, told yourself this job, this city, this version of you would be different, and then watched yourself repeat it all? Maybe it's not a coincidence, maybe it's not weakness, maybe it's something you haven't looked at yet. You show up strong, capable, even charming. But when things get close, your stomach knots, your chest tightens, something whispers, "Get out." You tell yourself it's intuition. But what if it's memory, old, buried memory, not always clear, but loud in the body, that makes you shrink or lash out or leave, even when no one has hurt you yet, especially when they haven't? You try to explain it to friends, but words fail. They say you're afraid of commitment. They say you self-sabotage. But none of that feels true, not really, because it doesn't feel like a choice, it feels like instinct. And you've started to wonder, is this just who I am? Am I broken? Let me pause you here. You are not broken. You are surviving in the most elegant, subconscious, heartbreaking way. Every time you pull away, there's a reason, a pattern, a loop. That voice inside you isn't random, it has a history. And before we talk about the shadow, before we name it, I want to ask something softer. What part of you is still waiting to feel safe, not seen, not praised? Just safe. Could that be the part that ruins things? Could that be the child who learned that safety comes through control or distance or disappearing? You don't need to answer out loud, but maybe feel into it. Because if you've stayed with me this far, if your breath caught at any point, if something inside you whispered yes, then maybe you're not alone. Maybe you're remembering something your mind forgot. And that is the beginning of everything. Emma was 28 the first time she heard the word shadow in therapy. It wasn't said with drama or mysticism. It was said gently, like something ordinary, like a part of her she'd just forgotten to say hello to. Her therapist, Dr. Leona, was soft-spoken, but precise. The kind of presence that made silence feel warm, not empty. They had been talking about Emma's relationship with her boss, how praise made her anxious, how every compliment felt suspicious. Dr. Leona had tilted her head and asked, "What's the first memory you have of being told you were too much?" The question landed like a stone in water, ripples everywhere. Emma remembered a birthday party, age 6, too excited, too loud, spilled juice, knocked over the cake. Her mother's face froze in embarrassment. Later whispered in her ear, "You always ruin things when they're going well." It was just a sentence, but it wrote a story, one that Emma still followed every time things went well. Her nervous system braced for punishment, so she punished herself first. Better to destroy something yourself than to wait for someone else to do it. That's what Dr. Leona called the shadow, not a monster, not evil, but a part of Emma that carried the memory of being too much, of being dangerous to joy. And that part it had made a vow, a silent promise to never let joy last long enough to become punishment again. So when Emma fell in love, when she got promoted, when she was invited to speak in front of a room, the shadow rose with caution, with armor, with fear disguised as logic. "She's not rejecting the moment," Dr. Leona said. "She's protecting the child who was shamed for having joy." Emma cried for the rest of that session, not because she was sad, but because for the first time someone understood that the part of her that ruined things was just trying to keep her safe. And in that moment, she stopped calling it sabotage and started calling it loyalty. Imagine a house, your inner world, the top floor is where you live now, where you show up to work, date, dream, perform. It's decorated, curated, well-lit. But there's a basement. And in that basement are all the parts of you you didn't know where to put, your anger, your jealousy, your fear of being forgot. They're not gone, they're just downstairs. And over time, you forgot what you put there. You bolted the door. You labeled it, "Not me." But it is you. That basement is your shadow. Carl Jung said the shadow is everything we refuse to see about ourselves. Not because it's bad, but because it was unacceptable to someone we needed love from, so we disowned it. We called it unprofessional, unlovable, too much. We told it to go live in the dark while we built a self that would be accepted. But the shadow doesn't stay silent. It leaks. It shows up in the sudden rage you can't explain, in the numbness that floods your chest before a big opportunity, in the voice that whispers, "You're a fraud." And the more we deny it, the more power it has. Because the shadow is not content to be ignored. It wants to be known, not to sabotage you, to save you. It was born to protect, to stop you from reliving pain, even if that means keeping joy out, even if that means pushing away the very thing you long for. It doesn't make sense on paper, but it makes perfect sense in the nervous system. When Emma learned this, she stopped trying to destroy her fear. She started to get curious. What if this part of me isn't the enemy? What if it's a child in the dark banging on the door saying, "Don't forget me"? That shift changed everything. Because when you walk downstairs, when you open that basement door and sit beside what you tried to exile, you realize something. It was never trying to hurt you. It was trying to protect the most tender part of you. The part that still remembers the moment it stopped feeling safe. And suddenly, the house feels more like a home, because all of you has a place in it again. There's a moment right before it happens, before you hit send on the text that ends it, before you cancel the interview, before you ghost the person who made you feel seen. It's a flicker, barely noticeable, a tightening in your chest, a voice saying, "This might not be safe." You try to breathe through it, you tell yourself you're overreacting. But then the thoughts start to spiral. What if I mess it up? What if they leave first? What if they see the real me? And that's when the loop begins, the sabotage loop. It looks like this. Desire builds something new, something good, something hopeful. Then comes anxiety, then doubt, then retreat in the form of silence, excuses, or starting a fight. Then guilt, then self-judgment, and then you start over. Emma had been in that loop so many times she could predict the weather by it. A great date, she'd get cold the next day. A promotion. She'd procrastinate on the first big project, not because she didn't want it, but because her nervous system had learned something else. That good things come with risk, that joy has a price. So her shadow stepped in. It whispered, "Better to sabotage than be surprised. Better to leave than be left. Better to shrink than be seen." And so she looped. Again and again, each time confirming the belief, "I ruin things." But here's what broke that cycle: she mapped it, noticed the pattern, named the points. And that awareness gave her something she'd never had before: choice. She still felt the panic, the urge to run, but she recognized it. She could whisper back, "I see you." And in that pause, that sacred pause, she could ask, is this fear? Or is this memory? Is this danger? Or is this love? The loop didn't vanish overnight, but it softened. And eventually it unraveled. Because loops only hold power when we believe we are them. But you are not the loop. You are the one noticing it. And that is where the real change begins. It started with a letter. Emma sat by her window, late evening, streetlights humming outside. She lit a candle not for romance, but for ritual. She opened a blank notebook and wrote 2 words at the top, "Dear Fear." Then she paused, not because she didn't know what to say, but because the words finally had a place to land. She wrote, "I know you're not here to hurt me. I know you're trying to protect me. The only way you know how. You learned early that love was dangerous, that being seen meant being judged, that joy was too loud. And now, every time I get close to something beautiful, you step in. You armor me. You shut the doors before I even realize I opened them. But I'm ready to talk, not to fix you, not to get rid of you, but to understand." Emma stopped. Her hand trembled. She'd written letters before, to exes, to future versions of herself, but never to the part of her that sabotaged everything. This wasn't a technique. It was a meeting. And in that meeting, something shifted. She didn't cry. She didn't break down. She exhaled deep, long, like her body had been holding a breath for years, and finally let go. That night, she slept through the night for the first time in months, not because anything was resolved, but because something was finally welcomed. And here's where you come in. If you were to write that letter, who would it be to? Fear, shame, perfection? If that part had a name, what would you call it? And if it could answer you, what would it say? You don't need a perfect script, just a quiet space, a pen, a flickering light, and the willingness to not be at war with yourself. Because healing isn't about silencing fear. It's about sitting beside it, lighting a candle, and saying, "You can stay." It was a Tuesday afternoon when Emma ran into James, a grocery store. Of all places, she was reaching for oat milk. He was in the same aisle, holding a bag of oranges. Their eyes met. Neither moved. The silence was thick, not with anger, but with all the words that had never been said. Emma felt her heart race, her breath caught, the old loop stirred. Get out, say something cold, make a joke, disarm it, run, but she didn't. She stayed, she nodded. James gave a small, hesitant smile, no words, just presence. It lasted maybe 10 seconds, but it felt like standing in a windstorm with no shelter. Everything in her body screamed retreat, but something deeper whispered, wait. So she did. She finished her shopping, hands shaking. And when she got to the car, she cried, not the kind of tears that come from pain, the kind that come from surviving a moment you used to lose to. Because this time she didn't vanish, she didn't explain, she didn't pretend she was fine, she just stayed. And that changed something, not just with James, but with herself. Later that night, she wrote again, "Dear me, today you didn't run. And I'm proud of you." She placed the note under her pillow, not to read again, just to honor it. It was the first time she saw herself as someone worth rooting for, not because she was perfect, but because she showed up, with trembling hands, with a heart that still bruised easily, but also with a spine that had started to hold. And in that quiet victory, the shadow softened, not disappeared, but sat beside her, no longer the saboteur, now just a part of her learning to trust the light. "Doctor," Leona asked Emma to do something unusual. "Draw her," she said. Emma blinked. "Draw who?" "Your shadow, the part of you that ruins things." Emma hesitated. She hadn't drawn anything since high school, but something inside her said try, so she picked up a pencil, and slowly on a blank sheet a figure appeared, small, knees pulled to chest, head down, messy hair, no face, just sadness. Emma stared at the drawing. "Now, doctor," Leona said gently. "What does she need?" The question hit like lightning. Emma wanted to say nothing, but the truth came out soft and fast. She needs someone to sit with her, not fix her, not lecture her, just sit. So that's what Emma did. Every evening that week, as she lit the same candle, took out the drawing, and sat. Some nights she whispered, other nights she said nothing at all, but each time she stayed, no rush to heal. No demand to be better, just presence. And something remarkable began to unfold. The voice in her head, the one that always said, "Leave." It got quieter, not silent, but softer, like a child who finally felt heard. Emma named the figure, not something dramatic, just Ellie. A name she once gave to an imaginary friend as a girl. Ellie became real again. Not as a threat, but as a part of her. And as Emma spent time with Ellie, she began to ask herself questions she'd never dared before. What if I didn't need to be good all the time? What if I could want something without ruining it? What if I'm still learning how to feel safe? And each question was like a key, unlocking a little more space, a little more breath. This wasn't therapy, this was relationship. And the more she related to Ellie, the more she related to herself. If you've never done this, try. Draw the part of you you avoid. No one has to see it. It doesn't need to be beautiful. It just needs to be real. Then sit with it. And ask, what do you need? Then listen. Because even the shadow child just wants to come home. Emma didn't become a new person. She didn't start meditating at sunrise or speaking in mantras. She was still herself, still overthinks texts, still gets overwhelmed by loud spaces, still forgets to eat lunch on busy days. But something was different. It showed in the pauses, in the way she now asked, "Is this fear or is this Ellie?" At work, when a colleague gave her credit, her first instinct was to deflect. But then she'd catch it, place a hand over her heart and whisper, "You're safe." It wasn't magic, it was presence. On dates, she no longer performed. She said what she liked, even if it felt vulnerable. She shared her weird jokes. She let silences happen and didn't try to fill them. With her mom, she stopped pretending everything was fine. One afternoon, after an emotional phone call, Emma sat on her couch and said out loud, "I don't need to be easy to love to be worthy of love." And something in the room stilled, like the air was listening. She wasn't healed. She was healing in real time, in small, unremarkable moments, saying no when her body said no, leaving parties when the noise got too much, choosing people who felt safe over people who felt exciting but distant. And when she messed up, when she froze or overreacted or spiraled, she didn't collapse in shame. She wrote to Ellie. She said, "I get it, that was scary, we're okay." And slowly, her nervous system began to believe it, that love could stay, that closeness wasn't a trap, that joy wasn't dangerous. Emma no longer distrusted herself, not fully, not like before. And that shift, subtle as it was, changed everything, not the world, not other people, just her. And that was enough. Emma stood by her window again, same view, same flickering city. But something had shifted, not outside, inside. She held a small candle in her hands, lit it, placed it next to her drawing of Ellie, and whispered, "I see you and I'm staying." No big declarations, no dramatic closure, just truth, soft, honest, present, the kind that lives in the body. Not in headlines. She wasn't cured, she wasn't fixed, she was whole, not because she erased her fear, but because she made room for it. Wholeness isn't about deleting the dark. It's about learning to walk with it, hand in hand, to love the voice that once scared you, to sit with the child you once abandoned, to let all your parts belong. And now maybe this is your moment too, to pause, to listen, to light a small flame for your own forgotten self. You don't need a full plan, you just need a willingness to be with yourself. Gently. So if any part of this story touched something in you, if something inside whispered, "That's me," then maybe you're ready to stop running, to stop fighting. To come home, comment, "I'm ready to stop running," below. If only to say to yourself, "I was here, and I'm still here. And this is just the beginning."